Boy, the case of Kouri Richins just gets more and more interesting. I've downloaded a bunch of documents I paid for on the state of Utah's website, learned about this ongoing battle. First of all, between Kouri and her husband, in terms of Kouri allegedly stealing a bunch of money from him, even to the point of having a locksmith drill a hole in her husband's safe, which contained about $200,000 in the garage after Eric Richins died. He died mysteriously and suspiciously of a big overdose. In the wake of his death, Kouri Richins entered into a battle with her sister-in-law, Eric Richins' sister Katie. This ongoing battle between the two women, and even between husband and wife, Kouri and Eric, it plays out in these court documents. At one point, Kouri accused Katie, her sister-in-law, of hiring a private investigator to follow Kouri around and surveil her. Much has been made of the fact that Kouri wrote a children's book teaching kids how to grieve after her husband died. Well, when you dig deeper, you will see Kouri's desperation started about 3 years after she married Eric. We're going to get all into the highlights of these many court documents as we wait for Kouri's first appearance, her detention hearing coming up on Friday to see if she's a flight risk or if she should stay in jail. So Eric Richins was only 39 years old when he died on March 3rd, the night of March 3rd going into March 4th, 2022. It was 8 days later when Eric's sister, known as the petitioner, Katie Richins Benson, she petitioned the court for a formal probate of Eric's will and to have a formal appointment of a personal representative. After all, Katie had already been privy to Eric's fears of Kouri, his wife, allegedly trying to poison him, and even stealing tons and tons of money from Eric. What went so wrong in this marriage? Eric and Kouri had an ironclad prenup already drawn up. It was presented to Kouri on the day of her wedding. Maybe she kind of felt a little ambushed by that. It seems like the language in here infers that she might have felt caught off guard. In so many words, their prenup said, "What's mine is mine and what's yours is yours." Maybe Eric was a little jaded or smart. He had gone through a prior marriage before he married Kouri, and that marriage ended in divorce, and maybe things didn't work out in Eric's favor. We don't know if Kouri really loved Eric, or did she just see dollar signs with this masonry guy who was 8 years older than her, who kind of swept her off her feet from Home Depot and introduced her to a better life. But in this battle of wills, as soon as Katie petitioned for her brother's will to go through probate and to become the personal trust representative, that's when Kouri came back fighting. It was only March 28th, 2022, when Kouri filed a complaint against her sister-in-law, Katie. She did not want Katie being that trustee of the Eric Richins Living Trust. After all, Kouri had already gotten into a brouhaha with her sister-in-law the day after Eric died. The accusations center around the family home, Eric's will, and basically money, money, money. Eric's sister apparently didn't want Kouri gaining all this money and property after she's been accused of being the one of committing the homicide. Kouri came back fighting legally before she was arrested, and even after she was arrested, you'll see how she keeps fighting legally the day after she was arrested. So it was on or around November 21st, 2012. That's when Eric and Kouri were still engaged to be married. That's when they purchased the famous house 282 Willow Court in Francis, Utah. That's unfortunately where Eric would take his last breaths. That night he got that poisoned Moscow mule, or other court documents say he had a shot and a gummy. Ironically enough, Eric and Kouri acquired that family home from Eric's sister, the selfsame sister, Katie Lynn Richins Benson, and her husband Clinton Allen Benson, that selfsame sister-in-law to Kouri that she's been battling back and forth legally. Kouri is claiming at first, look, she contributed her own funds to the down payment along with Eric and the home. She's claiming all the utility bills were in her name before they even moved in. She's saying she contributed equally to monthly mortgage payments and more. 6 months after they moved into that home, which is now the location of Eric's murder, it was June 15th, 2013, when Corey and Eric were married right there in the backyard. They would go on to have 3 sons, but before all of those sons came to being, and before Eric unexpectedly passed away in his sleep, as Corey puts it in her court documents and in her interviews, there were problems. But on that wedding day, June 15th, 2013, immediately prior to the wedding, it says, and presumably because of the unpleasantness surrounding Eric's prior marriage and subsequent divorce, Eric's mother delivered to Corey a prenup agreement and requested that Corey sign it. Isn't that the ultimate test of love? If Corey was so much in love with Eric, if she didn't have dollar signs in her eyes, if she was really marrying him for love, it would be the ultimate test to have your mother-in-law shove this prenup in your face right before you say your vows. You know, vows like for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health. Well, you have the paperwork shoved in your face. How would Corey react? How did she react? Well, she signed it. I don't know if she will claim it was under duress, but she signed it. Was she not expecting her mother-in-law to present her with such paperwork? If she thought Eric was going to be this meal ticket, maybe she would have balked at signing it. Nevertheless, she signed it. It was notarized simultaneously with their wedding certificate by the very same individual, court documents say. At the same time, Eric already had his successful business growing. Years later, on June 25th, 2019, Eric had his business partner, Kouri Richins. They entered into an agreement. It's a buy-sell agreement for their C&E Stonemasonry LLC business. So Eric owned 50%, and that business was easily worth $2 million or more. But the battle was Corey entitled to any of it? Let Corey tell it she would be. However, because of all of Corey's alleged thievery and her alleged prior poisoning attempts of her husband, no wonder Eric was being very cautious about getting his money away from Corey, ultimately thinking of divorcing her too. But at the end, we'll talk about how he loved Corey and why he likely stayed with her. According to Corey, all these little movements with his business, it did not extinguish Corey's rights in the business interest. Au contraire, mon frère, will Katie claim, look, Corey, you don't have any rights to this business. And all the stuff you did to my brother Eric, you don't have any rights to anything. She's later going to petition the courts to claim because of the accused homicide. But Corey fought back. She's talking about Eric's will and his trust and everything. And she's claiming Eric's objective in creating the trust was, quote, to provide for both my wife and our children during any time that I am incapacitated and after my death. Of course, we all know Eric didn't mean, sure, Corey can have everything if she kills me. Now, once Eric passed away, the fight with the family began. So after Eric unexpectedly passed away in his sleep, as Corey's paperwork claims, Corey's going to say, look, Eric and I were still lawfully married. But then the following evening, March 5th, 2022, several individuals, including Katie, Eric's sister, spent the night at the family home. Some documents or reports seem to conflict a little bit. You know, it's being reported as if Corey threw this huge party almost the night after Eric died. But other reports make it seem as though just Katie was there, and I'm not sure how many other family members or friends were there. The details will likely emerge. The next morning, March 6, 2022, Corey asked Katie to leave and give her time and space to grieve her husband. Despite Corey's requests, her paperwork says, Katie refused to leave and began threatening and verbally accosting Corey. That's when Corey's like, look, get out of my house. And that's when Katie was saying, look, I'm going to make sure you are kicked out of this family home. But Corey kept fighting the bad fight, and she continued with construction on a swimming pool. It kind of reminds you of shades of Lori Vallow. You know how Lori Vallow had a pool party after her husband died. Corey kept fighting and saying since Eric's death, Corey has paid all expenses related to the family home, and the trust over here with Katie, his sister, hasn't contributed in any fashion. So Corey wants kudos for paying the mortgage, insurance, utility, and all other expenses from her separate funds since Eric passed away. Well, you don't get kudos for that if you had anything to do with your husband's death. But in Corey's paperwork, it says, in addition, prior to Eric's passing, she doesn't say killing, Eric and Corey engaged a contractor to construct a swimming pool and fencing at the family home. So according to Corey, while Eric was still alive, allegedly he knew about this fence and swimming pool being installed. But it said that work was completed after Eric's death, and Corey paid the entirety of these improvements from her separate funds. So she wants credit for finishing the construction on the swimming pool and the fence. Again, it would be another great thing if she's not accused of being a black widow, contributing to her husband's demise. If Corey had suffered the loss of her husband through innocent means, and then she went on to continue to build the swimming pool, to have it for her boys, to help them through their grief, that would have been one thing. This is another thing entirely. Now let's talk about Corey accusing her sister-in-law of hiring a private investigator to spy on her. So after Eric's death, his sister became trustee of his trust, but Corey claims since becoming the trustee, Katie has continually acted with hostility towards Corey and has abused or exceeded the scope of her authority as a trustee and breached her duties not only to Corey but Corey's children, who are the beneficiaries of the trust. Most people would not blame Katie for being pretty angry with Corey if these murder accusations are true. So Corey claims on or around July 15th, 2022, Katie hired a private investigator, Todd Gabler of Rudiger Investigations, to surveil and follow Corey. Among other things, Corey said the private investigator has parked outside of Corey's house to watch and surveil her. I wonder if he caught Corey inviting any other men or an alleged boyfriend she may have had for much of the marriage. Did he catch any of that on video? Supposedly, Corey says the PI approached her neighbors to aggressively question them about her and Eric, and even presented at a neighbor's place of business to interrogate him for more than 30 minutes regarding Eric and Corey. I don't know about interrogation, but if this person talked to the PI for about 30 minutes about Eric and Corey, that person likely gave him an earful and probably wanted to talk to the PI. On July 18, 2022, Corey, through her lawyer, demanded that Katie confirm that she was not using trust assets to pay for the PI, and Katie failed to respond. Once again, Corey's main concern seemed to be money. She wanted to make sure her sister-in-law wasn't using the trust money to pay for this private investigator. This is the point that's wild. Corey even had a hole drilled in Eric's safe. On March 22nd, 2023, Katie, Corey's sister-in-law, claimed that her brother had expressed to her prior to his passing he believed his wife Corey was trying to poison him, and if he were to die unexpectedly, Corey was likely to have been involved in his death. Katie said, "It's clear to me that Eric believed his death was a real possibility." And he was right, wasn't he? And that's why Eric named his sister Katie as personal representative of his estate and successor trustee of his trust. And because of all those concerns, he told his sister about all the assets he had. So included in the list of assets that Eric owned, on or about February 2022, he specifically told Katie that he had about $200,000 in cash stored in a safe in his garage. Can you imagine having that much money sitting in your garage in a safe? I guess some people do. And we're going to learn why Eric likely did that and why he likely told his sister it was there once we see about all these times Eric claimed Corey stole money from him and how Corey allegedly admitted to it. Katie said, "In my role as personal representative, She tried to confirm the exact amount of cash stored in the safe along with other assets, but Kouri refused to allow Katie access to inventory Eric's assets. With regard to the safe, Kouri directed a locksmith to drill a hole in the safe. So Katie says, I haven't been able to confirm, if this money's even there, the contents of the safe, but, quote, I believe Kouri may have removed all or some of the contents. I believe Katie's likely right. Once Kouri just had the shock face of her life when she realized that she was no longer beneficiary to Eric's $3.6 million in assets, I'm sure Kouri was desperate for money. As desperate as apparently she's been since 2016. For some reason, that's when the money troubles with Kouri started. Katie went on to say at the time of his death, Eric owned a number of automobiles and recreational vehicles, 2 Polaris Outlaws, a Polaris Ranger, a Polaris Indy, a Yamaha YYR50, a Can-Am Defender, a Ski-Doo Summit, and 2 Yamaha Snow Scoots. We don't know if all of those assets have been liquidated or not. Maybe Kouri took care of them in the year after his death and before her recent arrest. But Kouri was claiming her own damages. She kept hitting back. There are so many documents filed in this particular case. There's several different cases outside of the criminal homicide case. But Kouri claims she suffered damages as a direct result of Katie's actions. Kouri claims she was entitled to a money judgment against Katie and the trust amount to be proven at trial. We don't know what'll happen with these allegations now, which is not less than $300,000. So Kouri wanted at least $300,000 from her sister-in-law in that trust. And Kouri really wanted to remove Katie as trustee over the trust. Kouri was even claiming just replace her with an independent third-party professional as the new trustee. But on May 10th, 2023, there was a petition to determine a disqualifying homicide. Basically, Katie was saying, look, she's the personal representative of the estate of Eric Richins. Since she believes her sister-in-law Kouri was the one who killed her brother Eric, Kouri shouldn't profit at all. It's that Slayer statute, they call it. She believes Kouri committed a disqualifying homicide upon Eric. Therefore, Kouri should forfeit all benefits under the estate. They talk about Kouri having a financial motive to get rid of Eric. She married him June 15th, 2013. Now, this is a new detail I learned. Katie believes that starting as early as 2016 and perhaps earlier, Kouri began having serious financial troubles, which is so curious to me. How did this marriage work? What was happening? It sounds like Kouri, as we're going to learn, had control over a lot of finances, and she just wasn't trustworthy with it. What kind of serious financial troubles did Kouri have and why? 3 years into the marriage or even earlier. Part of me wonders did Kouri tell herself, I don't want to just be a mom, I want to do more, I want to become a realtor, and all of this money she starts stealing from Eric apparently, allegedly, was used to start flipping these homes. So did Kouri just want to make a name for herself as a realtor? Did she just need her name out in the spotlight? I understand, of course, wanting to be, quote, more than a mom or having outside interests. That's fine. But it seems like Kouri turned to thievery to accomplish these goals. In Katie's court documents, it says, Katie believes Kouri began stealing money from Eric to help her with buying and selling, flipping houses, and to otherwise attempt to address her financial troubles. I don't understand why Kouri had financial troubles to begin with. If Eric's business was successful, and I don't know how they worked out the finances, why did Kouri start having trouble? What was happening? Did she think Eric was too controlling over the money? Did she want her own career? What was happening where Kouri was having these financial troubles? But it says Kouri hid the fact from Eric that she was stealing money from him. And Katie believes Kouri was taking money from bank accounts owned by Eric and running up debts on credit cards in Eric's name without Eric knowing. Now, it's a long list. I won't read it all, but September 2020, Eric learned that Kouri had withdrawn at least $100,000 from Eric's bank accounts. And he also learned she had borrowed large amounts of money on Eric's credit cards. And that's when Eric confronted Kouri about the stolen money, and Kouri admitted she had taken the money according to Katie's accusations. It was in excess of $100,000, and the amount charged to his credit cards was in excess of $30,000. And then in September 2020, Eric also discovered that Kouri had fraudulently borrowed $250,000 using a fraudulent power of attorney. So that's already $130,000 plus $250,000, that's $380,000. What on earth? Did Kouri want to start flipping houses, and did she sit down with her husband and, like, as a family, the household income, the household budget, say, this is what I'd like to do? Did he say no, and then did she turn around and just steal it from him? Did she feel like, well, this is my money too? And then in March 2019, without Eric's knowledge or consent, Kouri opened with TCF National Bank a revolving line of credit with an available credit limit of $250,000 and borrowed the entire amount as a loan. So Eric didn't receive any benefit from that loan, and he confronted Kouri about the fraudulent $250,000 loan in September of 2020. Can you imagine? That's the first time I see mentioned that Eric believed Kouri may have attempted to poison him. So here he is thinking, my wife is trying to poison me. We're on vacation in Greece somewhere. He's also confronting her that same year about a fraudulent $250,000 loan. Kouri admitted she had wrongfully taken out the loan and promised to pay it back. There's so much here, it's hard to count up all the accusations of theft and wrongdoing. Especially also when they get to tax obligations. On June 19th, 2019, Eric's company issued a check payable to Corey Richens in the amount of $23,310 for payment on Eric's second quarter federal taxes. But Kouri improperly took that money, misdirected it for her benefit, didn't pay Eric's tax obligations, and even lied to Eric's accountants when they asked her had that tax payment been made. Her statement was false. Kouri lied. She said the tax payment had been made and it hadn't. The same thing happened with a $12,060 fourth quarter estimated federal tax due January 15th, 2021. By that October, Kouri claimed those taxes had been paid, and that was false. No wonder I saw all these tax liens in there for Kouri and Eric. Then again, November 23rd, 2021, his company issued a check to him, to Eric, in the amount of $44,654 for the payment of Eric's 2020 federal taxes. Kouri misdirected that money as well. So the total amount improperly taken by Kouri intended to pay for Eric's federal tax obligations was $80,024. And they're saying, look, Kouri might have stolen more tax payments that they don't even know about that haven't been discovered yet. So it incurred all these penalties and interest. There was more. There was a $13,000 payment for Utah state taxes that Kouri allegedly took and lied about, claiming they were paid. There was $36,000 on April 29th, 2021, a check payable to Eric for his Utah state taxes for the 2020 tax year. Kouri took that $36,000 and lied about it. And again, November 23rd, 2021 was a $5,322 check. I mean, it just goes on and on. So the total state obligations was $54,322, which Kouri misdirected. So finally, at some point after Eric's death, June 23rd, 2022, Kouri paid $50,342 towards the delinquent state tax payments, which left about $4,000 left. And she still owes a ton. The total of the stolen federal payments and stolen state tax payments is at least $134,346. The bulk of that, $84,000, is still to be owed, is still owing. So all this misrepresentation. So they show the circumstances that appear that Kouri murdered Eric in these court documents, everything that we've gone through already. On March 4th, around 3:22 a.m., deputies responding to their house, finding Eric at the foot of his bed. He was deceased. According to Kouri, they had just been celebrating closing a house for her business, which I seriously doubt. After learning of all this money she stole from him, all the alleged poisoning attempts, I seriously doubt that Eric was there toasting it up with her like, "You go, girl. You closed on that house." The poisonous Moscow mule came, and Kouri claims she attempted to perform CPR on Eric. They don't believe it. They don't believe her phone was left there in the bedroom. Contrary to Kouri's claim that she attempted CPR, first responders believe that no CPR had been attempted due to the large amount of blood that came from Eric's mouth. They found Eric, other than this poisoning, was in relatively good health with no major health problems except Lyme disease. That's when they dug into Kouri's text messages and found all these incriminating messages between her and a person named CL who supplied Kouri with the fentanyl. And this is the point I had missed before, the almost deadly Valentine's Day dinner, February 14th, 2022, when Kouri had served Eric a sandwich. Shortly after he took a bite of the sandwich, Eric became very ill and believed he had been poisoned. Specifically, he broke into hives and couldn't breathe. He had to use an EpiPen and some Benadryl before passing out for several hours. That's when he woke up and told his business partner about the incident. And he thought Kouri was trying to poison him. Maybe Kouri thought she had done it that time. But no. On May 8th, 2023, Kouri was locked up and arrested. But she didn't stop fighting legally. The day after, May 9th, 2023, Katie was filing a counterclaimant and updated with the fact that Kouri had been arrested by the Summit County Sheriff's Department and charged with aggravated murder, among other offenses. So Kouri remains incarcerated in the Summit County Jail. But Kouri's position now is that all the other related probate cases should be stayed in their entirety, including cancellation of this upcoming May 31st hearing about the other, the money matters, I'll call them. There's the murder matters and the money matters. Kouri is trying to fight from jail. Kouri's claiming she didn't give permission, nor did her lawyers give permission for anyone to take possession of the family home and all the belongings therein shortly after her arrest. It contains the personal belongings of Kouri and her children. Kouri is trying to claim, look, there's privileged information between me and my lawyers lying around that house, and no one else should, be able to go in there. And she's worried about goats and chickens, I think she has bigger fish to fry than that. But Kouri's counsel understands that a number of goats and chickens have already been removed by Katie. Which makes sense. If Kouri's arrested, the 3 boys are allegedly off with a family member somewhere, which is good. I hope they can be raised really well in the wake of this madness. Kouri's claiming in her legal paperwork that a number of goats and chickens have already been removed from the home by Katie. Well, I don't blame Katie. If Kouri's gone, no one's at the house, someone has to take care of the goats and chickens. I'm glad if she did take them, she took them. Who knows? Kouri's counsel has no idea what happened to these animals. And Kouri wants an inventory and photographs at the family home. She wants to know what's going on there. That's what she's worried about in this particular paperwork filed or dated May 10th, 2023. I think she's got way other things to worry about. But one article that was really good, it spoke about Eric's feelings. So many people are like, well, why didn't this man leave? Well, he hoped to keep his family together. That's a quote from the Salt Lake Tribune. He was an avid outdoorsman and entrepreneur, but a Salt Lake City attorney named Greg Skordas, he also says Eric was a devoted father and husband. Greg is the spokesperson for the Richins family, and Greg is explaining, look, Eric hoped to keep his family together. He hoped to keep his boys in a nuclear family. He had hoped things would work out. And, like I was guessing, he was very much in love with his wife, even though it became fairly obvious that she was trying to undermine him professionally, and he at least suspected that she was trying to kill him at one point, says Greg. So that explains it. I mean, Eric was obviously really in love with Kouri. He probably had this fairy tale idea in his head of like, this marriage will work out. This beautiful woman. And I don't know what their communication was like over money. No matter what, Eric didn't deserve to be poisoned. And it sounds like Kouri had control over money and access and accounts and all that stuff. I don't know if she just thought she deserved more, deserved it all, needed this to project this professional image of this successful realtor flipping homes, you know, and not wanting to be told no when Eric told her the $2 million flipper, the last one they argued over apparently, was too expensive. People described him as a giving man, so I don't know why she chose that route. They talk about how Eric was originally from Bountiful, and he went to Woods Cross High before graduating from the University of Utah. Got his bachelor's degree in 2011, but 2 years prior to that, even while in college, I guess he started that masonry business with his close friend Kouri Richins. They focused on intricate outdoor stonework, pavers and tile work in high-end homes, something seen on their Instagram. I just love stonework. I'm sure I just walk past homes that have the most beautiful stonework, so no wonder he built such a successful business. He had so many assets and everything. But, you know, they were trying to protect their business and practice. Eric and his business partner had their life insurance policies on each other. Greg said that's a common practice when two people go into business together. It'll give you the money to buy the other party out if one of them dies. But they start talking about, you know, life going downhill after he married Kouri, and then by 2016, whatever made her so desperate to want to steal money from her own husband, I don't know. In an ideal world, it should be, everything should be open. I know it's probably a rare marriage where this happens, but everyone should have at least, if not access to the same accounts, at least, you know, knowledge of what's happening. Like Kouri shouldn't be stealing money behind his back and forging his signature and taking wrongful power of attorney and lines of credit and loans and not paying the taxes and claiming she's paying the taxes. All the thievery, everything. But Greg said there was no question that their marriage was on the rocks, and we believe that Kouri took some steps to manipulate their marital assets because of that. And we also believe she took his life because of that. So how much did Eric really know? Obviously he knew about some of her thievery, and it seems like he forgave her. He was probably hoping against hope, like, okay, she's apologized, this'll be better. You know, but then it kept happening, and I don't even know, did he even know about all the IRS payments and the not being made and the tax liens? Did he know it was as bad as it was? Well, he was probably focused on trying to stay alive and avoiding these poisoning attempts, but being a father was his favorite thing. And they talk about his obituary, and Greg called Richins a very generous man who donated his time to coach his son's soccer and basketball and baseball teams and all of that. Greg said mostly he just liked being with his boys. He wanted to be very much a part of their lives, which is why he was so active in their extracurricular activities. What he liked to do was be a father. That was his favorite thing. But Greg says they've also been hopeful. Eric Richins' family has been hopeful that the truth will come out, and they're optimistic about that. So that was it. That's the whole sordid, long, weird story thus far of Kouri Richins. There's a lot of cases and a lot of trials mixed in with this. I think if Kouri's homicide trial proceeds as I think it will, if she, all this evidence stacked against her, if she is found guilty, then of course, I don't think she'll have any rights to Eric's estate or anything. What'll happen with his boys is a separate matter. I would believe Katie, his sister, would want the best for her nephews, so it's not like the boys won't get anything. I believe Corey won't get anything. And maybe she'll stop and consider and think and take many, many years, if she gets many, many years in prison, to consider the error of her ways and perhaps confess? I don't know. Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. I like to get all into the Facebook groups. I saw one person who claimed she had seen Corey, who was with a friend in perhaps Nashville or something like that. She met Corey allegedly with this stay-at-home mom. It was not a male friend with Corey apparently, but it was so intriguing to me because I'm trying to figure out Corey's mindset. If she was really carrying on an affair almost the entirety of the marriage, if those rumors are true, like what, a 9-year affair? Was it with one guy or different guys? If that's really true, and if she's really stealing all this money from her husband, lying to him, wanting this great realtor career, carrying on with a different guy, it doesn't sound like she had much love for Eric. Maybe she loved his money and what it could do for her, and did she just like traveling around and being a big shot? Or image seems important. It seems that way to Corey. The image of the successful realtor, the image of the successful children's book author. All about image. All attempts to thwart those murder charges. Well, we'll see. ABC4 will be in court for her hearing, so thank God there the pool camera. We'll get to see video. It'll probably be really short, but we'll see what happens from there. Stay tuned.